Hello and welcome to another session of the My Solo 401k Financial Daily Webinar Series. Today we're excited to discuss how CRNAs can secure retirement with a solo 401k plan. If you're checking us out on our various channels like YouTube or LinkedIn, Instagram, or X, please subscribe as we go live twice a day. You're always welcome to join as we like to share content around solo 401k plans. Also, feel free to bring questions or topics that are off-topic issues as well, as we're happy to discuss questions or topics that are off-topic as well. Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful yet overlooked retirement tools out there, the solo 401k. Why does it matter? Because if you operate as a 1099 independent contractor, which effectively means you're the boss, you can unlock more tax savings and retirement potential than most people realize. Here's what we'll cover: why most self-employed folks fall behind on retirement and how to avoid it. We'll discuss solo 401k versus SEP IRA and which one gives you the upper hand. How to contribute up to $70,000 or more if you're 50 or older. We'll go through some real-world examples specifically for CRNAs, and ultimately how going 1099 can supercharge your financial freedom. So grab a pen, pour some coffee, and stay tuned because the webinar could literally transform how you save for retirement. Let's get started. Of course, the presentation is being provided for educational purposes only and should not be construed as tax, legal, or investment advice, nor as a solicitation. When making an investment decision, please consult with your tax attorney and financial professional. All right, so we'll start out with some basics. So why many fall behind on retirement savings? Well, of course, debt, family expenses, just lifestyle inflation, lack of a structured retirement plan, market volatility and procrastination, no access to an employer-sponsored retirement plan or other retirement option can certainly cause individuals to fall behind on their retirement savings goals. What happens when you realize you're behind? Well, debt still lingers, retirement savings are not on track. You may realize that you need to catch up fast, right? So enter the 1099 life and solo 401k strategy. A solo 401k is a very powerful retirement tool. It's designed for solopreneurs with no full-time W-2 employees other than a spouse, if any. And that's for any business owned by that person or a spouse, if any. So you need to be self-employed with no full-time W-2 employees. But if you meet those criteria, you can set up a 401k plan for your business. So that's going to allow you to make both employee and employer contributions, which results in the fact that a solo 401k has the highest contribution limits for any defined contribution plan available to self-employed individuals. And then if you set up a plan like the one offered by my solo 401k Financial, you can make not only pre-tax contributions, but also Roth and after tax, which is how you make mega backdoor Roth contributions to the plan. So you've got a lot of different contribution options. Moreover, it has much higher savings potential versus a SEP IRA for most people. And we'll talk about why that is in a moment. So why does a solo 401k often win over a SEP IRA? Well, it comes down to the different contribution buckets that you can make or contribute to when you contribute to a solo 401k. So when someone makes a SEP IRA contribution, they're really only able to fill up one type of bucket or one type of contribution. Whereas with a solo 401k, you've got access to multiple contribution buckets. So with the SEP IRA, you can only make employer contributions, which is going to be a percentage of your self-employment income. So for example, for someone whose business is taxed as a sole proprietorship, you can only contribute 20% of your self-employment compensation as an employer contribution. Now with the solo 401k, you're going to be able to make that same employer contribution, but you can also make additional contribution types like employee contributions, where, for example, for 2025, you can contribute 100% of your self-employment compensation up to $23,500, plus an additional $7,500 if you're age 50 or older. Or instead of $7,500, you can make a super catch-up contribution of $11,250 for 2025 if you're age 60 to 63. So you're gonna be able to make much more contributions because you're gonna be able to contribute 100% of your wages as an employee contribution. And then on top of that, if you got the self-employment compensation to justify it, you can make an employer contribution. So that same contribution that you could make to a SEP IRA. And then moreover, if you have a plan like the one offered by my solo 401k financial, then you can make a voluntary after-tax contribution, which could be even higher, all the way up, for example, up to $70,000. So a solo 401k is much more powerful than a SEP IRA when it comes to contributions generally. And then when you've got a solo 401k like the one that we offer by my solo 401k financial, you're also then going to be able to add on Roth options and or voluntary after-tax options, which is how one makes mega backdoor Roth contributions. And that doesn't even touch on the other features aside from contributions, right? Like the ability to take a 401k loan, which doesn't apply to a SEP IRA, or the ability to easily invest in alternative investments like our plan offers, or the ability to take a $1,500 tax credit. So there's many other reasons, which is ultimately why a solo 401k is going to often win or almost always win versus a SEP IRA. Now let's turn to an example specifically geared towards a CRNA, right? So a CRNA is, in our experience, we're fortunate to help a lot of CRNA independent contractors open solo 401ks. And we find a lot of times they have, relatively high income, which is great, which makes them great candidates, right? To be able to make and have the funds available to make higher contribution amounts to their solo 401k. And then moreover, many of those folks will oftentimes also want to make those mega backdoor Roth contributions, either 100% mega, or maybe they'll maximize the pre-tax and then also make additional contributions as Roth and or mega backdoor Roth contributions. So, but just focusing on employee and employer, the solo 401k is still going to win over the SEP IRA for the reasons mentioned up above. So let's assume, for example, this person has $200,000 as self-employment compensation, right? In the case of a business tax as a sole proprietorship, self-employment compensation is your net income reported on line 31 of Schedule C, less 1/2 of the self-employment tax. In the case of someone whose business might be taxed as an S Corp or a C Corp, self-employment compensation is the W-2 wages that you receive from that S Corp or the C Corp. So if that person is not making contributions to another plan, like a day job plan, where they're also, say, a W-2 employee somewhere else, if they're not making contributions to another plan, like a day job plan, then they can make the full employee contribution to the solo 401k. And for 2025, that's going to be 100% of that self-employment compensation, dollar for dollar, up to $23,500. Now, if they're age 50 or older, they're going to be able to make additional catch-up contributions, $7,500, for example, if they're age 50 plus, or for 2025, there's now the new super catch-up contribution amount of $11,250 instead of the $7,500. So like in this case where they got the self-employment income to justify it, if they were age 60 to 63, therefore eligible to make the super catch-up contribution, they could go all the way up to $34,750 just on the employee bucket. And they'd still have additional buckets that they could fill up, right? They could make an employer contribution. So the employer contribution limit is a percentage of the self-employment compensation. So if their business is taxed as a sole proprietorship, it's going to be 20% of their self-employment compensation that they can contribute as an employer contribution. If their business is taxed as an S Corp or a C Corp, it's 25% of the W-2 wages that they receive from their business taxed as an S Corp or a C Corp. So in this scenario, that's going to be a relatively large number, right? Like let's assume they have $200,000 of self-employment compensation as a sole proprietorship. 20% of $200,000 is 1/5, right? So that's $40,000. So if let's say they're under 50 and their goal is to first maximize pre-tax contributions, they don't contribute to another plan like a day job plan. They then make a $23,500 pre-tax employee contribution. They make a 20% of their self-employment compensation employer pre-tax contribution as well. That's another $40,000. Now they got $63,500 in their pre-tax solo 401k account. But if they have a plan like ours that allows for voluntary after-tax contributions, they could still make additional contributions even above that, right? All the way up to $70,000. That'd be another $6,500 that they could contribute as a voluntary after-tax contribution that would have to go into a separate voluntary after-tax account before it gets moved over to their Roth solo 401k account. So between the two, between pre-tax employee as well as pre-tax employer, as well as the mega backdoor Roth contributions, they've contributed $70,000 to the retirement account for 2025, which is way more than they could contribute as a contribution to a SEP IRA, because it'd be limited to only that one bucket, that employer bucket. So ultimately, there's going to be a number of strategic benefits of becoming a contractor. So say, for example, for someone who's a CRNA and they go independent as an independent 1099 independent contractor, there's going to be definitely some strategic benefits from a solo 401k perspective, right? Generally speaking, of course, they'll have more control over their income and deductions, just generally as a self-employed person. But then on top of that, now they're going to have access to the solo 401k. Again, as long as they don't have any employees working for any business owned by them or a spouse, if any, right? And then they're going to get access to higher contribution limits, generally speaking, right? With less income, they're going to be able to contribute more, right? Because they're going to be able to not only make the employer pre-tax contribution, but now they can make the employee contribution, right? Then they're also going to get access to the tax credit, right? Because our plan makes the self-employed business eligible to claim $1,500 in tax credits. That's $500 per year for 3 consecutive years. Then they also get more customization, right? Because now they're not just limited to pre-tax contributions, but they could also make Roth contributions, mega backdoor Roth contributions. So they could diversify from a tax perspective, right? So ultimately, they can accelerate their retirement savings goals because they're going to be able to save more, right, than the SEP IRA or some of the other retirement defined contribution plans that might be available to them, like even just a simple IRA. So with that takes us to the end of the content that we wanted to share. Thank you so much for joining today. We want to encourage you to join our community. We have a community of over 30,000 members, other solopreneurs, freelancers, just advisors, other people that are interested in our community. We have vibrant forums on there. We've got a library of videos and webinars. We have an AI, the industry's first, which you're welcome to use at solo401k.ai. It's a great way to find answers to questions quickly and other resources. Finally, if you are finding this to be helpful, please like this video. Please subscribe so you get notifications of when we go live. We go live twice a day. Please share it with others who might find it to be helpful. Of course, there's a growing number of self-employed individuals, freelancers, solopreneurs who, like you, might be looking to catch up on their retirement savings goals. So we want to be able to get the good information out to them. All right. Until next time, everyone, thank you so much. We appreciate the opportunity.